I don't know if this feels a little over the top, where one is, I'm looking at swimming and deep diving and all that stuff, and then relating it to spirituality. I also did the same thing with my Maldives trip when I stayed at the luxury resort. And considering that spirituality is this moment to moment awareness and a way to be within ourselves, I think it is very natural that in day-to-day activities of life, some of our best spiritual insights may come in. So talking about swimming, the way I learned swimming was a very interesting story. When I was in the Coimbatore Isha Yoga Center, this was way back in 2007 and 8, and I was a full-time volunteer in the ashram at the time. I basically went on a hike in, with fellow volunteers. I don't exactly remember what was the occasion, but we went on a hike and we went to this natural pool, which a lot of you, if you've been in any of those retreat or other programs, I think they do take a small hike. So in this pool, everybody started jumping into the water and stuff, and I didn't know swimming actually. So at the time, I asked one of those volunteer friends to just show it to me, and surprisingly, she just showed me the very basic breaststroke. And the movements in that are very simple. The hand just goes like this and the leg just pushes back. So I learned it very quickly. She showed it to me once and I tried it another time. Maybe I got a couple of comments, and then I actually swam that little bit of the pool. And so that was really exciting for me, and it was a very fascinating way to learn swimming. Actually, I was very surprised. I guess Sadhguru's grace and all would have been there, and somehow in that space, that kind of learning just happened, because I actually learned in that span of 15 to 20 minutes. So it was very amazing for me. When I came back to the city, and I joined like a nearby pool in Mumbai, and I started swimming. And that's when I started understanding that I need a little better technique. I am kind of doing laps and stuff like that. So one of the first things I realized that needs to get sorted to be able to swim properly is your breathing. And that was one of my first insights, that swimming is amazing for breath awareness. Control is a different thing. I'm not even going there. I'm just saying breath awareness. After we do Samyama, which is the advanced silence program in Isha, the effort for all of us is to ensure that we are aware of our breath all the time. Like all the time we are supposed to be aware of how our breath is going in and out. And it's during the swim that I realized that in a lot of sports activities actually helps you regulate your breathing a lot, and that breath awareness becomes very natural, because especially in something like swimming, you need to be so particular, because there are a lot of times when your face is underwater, you can't breathe. So it's not like you have an option. You have to have your breath in a certain rhythm. So that was my first learning. The second learning happened in this discovery dive that I did in Maldives, and that is also related to the breath. Because when you do a deep dive, you actually are wearing, you have a mask which covers your face completely, including your nose. So you cannot breathe with your nose. And so the only breathing apparatus is this pipe that you basically bite onto that air hose, and you create a lock with your mouth and that air hose, so that there is no leak of water going inside. And so your entire breath is dependent on that lock you held with your mouth and that hose that is sending the air in. And the air is high pressure air. You cannot ignore it. Like when we have the normal breathing going on, you can ignore it, because it is a lot of times very subtle also. But that air hose pipe it's like breathing like Darth Vader in Star Wars, you cannot ignore your breath, and that's very important. But that was not my learning. My learning was actually that in order to do that underwater deep dive, you have to hold on to that air hose like it's your life, because it is your life. That experience is actually very similar to when you're on your spiritual path, because to just keep moving ahead on the spiritual path, you have to hold on to something very strongly, like it is your life, because it is your life. Otherwise, there is no navigation in spiritual path. You'll just get stuck somewhere. Now, what that thing is will probably be different for different people. I think ultimately it comes down to the guru, or the way we would articulate and experience that guru energy, or how it will be different. So I don't want to put words a name to what we would hold on like that, but we would need to hold on to something like that. This I feel is specifically very relevant for a place like in the ashram. If we were staying in the ashram, the intensity and the challenges are so much, like it's just so much all over the place. You need that air hose, something that you hold on with your life, otherwise it's very difficult. And when we are outside, I feel at least for my personal experience is that it's little bit more like snorkeling or just doing very shallow dives and explorations in the spiritual path. Again, I don't want to correlate these two things too much, like your spiritual path and that experience of deep diving as separate things. I am personally, in terms of deep diving, I am very glad I took that experience, but I would now want to snorkel for a while, because, and that's what even that diving, the instructor who came with us for the first time, he also said that when you keep snorkeling, right, your technique with the fins and swimming and just keeping the water underwater, keeping the head underwater and breathing through the mouth pipe, it will get refined, and then in the underwater all of that will become natural, and then we can focus on the other requirements for an underwater dive. The third lesson is a little different. It's actually about my swimming goggles. You see, I used to have swimming goggles, but because I have specs and my number is like -4 or something, so if I don't have a prescription lens, I can pretty much not see much. So even though I had those swimming goggles, they didn't make any sense for me. But earlier I was playing in the pool with my nephew and my brother, and we were playing some games, and that's when I realized that if you don't have the swimming goggles which keeps the water out of your eye, your body does not allow you to be underwater properly. At least with me that was happening, probably because first of all, when you go down without swimming goggles, your eyes don't want to be open at all. It feels something wrong, and then the one is not able to hold there and just sit down. At least that's what I experienced. But the moment I started wearing swimming goggles, all of a sudden the body calms down, because it's not feeling that whole water thing. And then of course I assumed that prescription goggles would be too expensive, so I was not planning on it. But a random stroll in Decathlon, I realized just for $1,000 we can get prescription swimming goggles. So I got, I didn't even get my number, like -4 was not there. So I actually got -3 in both lenses. But even that made a world of difference. So it was because I had those glasses thankfully in Maldives, and even when I went into my deep dive for the scuba mask, my relative had prescription numbers which are very close to mine. So then I was able to do the scuba dive with those prescription scuba goggles. Those tend to be expensive, and she got it only from US. So I am also trying to procure them now, and that costs like 7,000-8,000 from what I understand right now. So it is a little expensive, but again not that expensive. A lot of us do spend such money on various things. So anyway, keeping those scuba masks aside, the normal swimming goggles, just for 1,000 rupees we can get a prescription number, and it will make a world of difference in your swimming and the exploration. If you go to a beach and you just you're not even planning to do proper snorkeling, you simply want to look underwater, if the visibility is reasonably good, then these prescription goggles are invaluable. And there is a lesson in that also, which I have learned as a spiritual sadhaka. I have learned about this after much hardship actually. It's the fact that even, see, as a spiritual sadhaka, sometimes we may become too rigid with ourselves. Like we may deny ourselves some comforts and conveniences, but it is not necessarily the right way. Sometimes it is the right way, like you must just stop certain things and let yourself grow. But a lot of times you need certain support, and we must allow that. Like the way these prescription swimming goggles made a world of difference, same way in the spiritual sadhana also, allowing certain things for myself made a world of difference. Like for example, see what happens is, take Isha Foundation. I'm giving just an example. In Isha we have this dormitory culture, like volunteers will generally stay in a dorm. And if you ask someone, they will generally say that the dorm is an area for you to grow, and that whole sadhaka community and all that stuff. But I realized for myself over the last many years that being solo and having that little space of my own and a room of my own is very important. So I don't let that go, and so I have not stayed in a Isha dorm for ages, and I am fine with it. And sometimes it restricts me from certain things, because for certain program volunteering and certain things they insist on dorm stay, and I'm always stepping back. Maybe eventually I may stay for just 2 days in a dorm and come back. It won't be too big a thing, but I know, I understand myself, right? And I understand the value that that little space brings for me. So I take it. And that's the learning, that we need to allow a few conveniences, because they could really make a world of difference, which we don't realize. And the way to judge it, I guess, is to allow a bit of convenience and see its impact and decide whether this is bringing that much of value, or if it's not bringing value, we don't need it. Like for example, a swimming goggles without prescription numbers is not that much value for me, because even though it keeps my eyes dry, I can't see anything. So what I used to do is I used to wear my specs inside while swimming. As a spiritual sadhaka, we need to decide what conveniences actually will help us move a lot faster in our journey. So let's not be too rigid. I think it's how Sadhguru says, no, like every time they're telling that when we need to sit and practice, we don't need to be ramrod straight. We can just be comfortably straight. So yeah, these are my 3 spiritual lessons from swimming, diving. One of them often highlighted benefits of swimming is that meditative feeling that one gets underwater. Maybe it's a thing, but for me these 3 things were the biggest things as of now. I think as I will do more water explorations, because I do plan to now, maybe I will have something more to talk about underwater meditation and stuff like that. Let me know if you have any similar experiences.